Grand Rapids, Michigan, a city known for its vibrant culture, historic neighborhoods, and a strong sense of community. But on July 7, 2011, that sense of security was shattered. What started as an ordinary summer day turned into one of the darkest moments in the city's history. A man named Rodrick Dantzler unleashed a rampage of bloodshed across Grand Rapids, leaving 7 innocent people dead before taking his own life in a final act of defiance. This was not a random act of violence, it was calculated, fueled by rage, and carried out with brutal precision. But what led to this moment? What drove Dantzler to commit such atrocities? And could it have been prevented? Tonight, we take a deep dive into the Grand Rapids Massacre, a day when the city was held hostage by one man's violent descent into madness. Rodrick Dantzler wasn't a ghost, he wasn't some unknown entity. He was a 34-year-old man with a history of domestic violence, criminal activity, and an explosive temper. But where did it come from? It was stated that because he didn't have his father around and also having a very abusive stepfather who used drugs in their home, he channeled those traumas into rage. Those who knew him described him as a volatile and deeply troubled individual. He had been in and out of the prison system, unable to control his violent tendencies. He had a bipolar disorder plus a past filled with rage, aggression, and unresolved conflicts dating back to when he was just a kid. It started with a breaking and entering in 1992. The first crime similar to the last crime he would commit in his lifetime. But what made him snap on July 7th? According to his friend, Willie Cunningham, who was driving him around until he jumped from the driver's seat of the infamous white Suburban, it was because his wife of 10 years was planning on leaving him. Willie stated that he drove him to the liquor store, and he was drinking heavily while Willie was driving and he was on cocaine. Mixing a bipolar disorder with cocaine and liquor while feeling at a loss, he crashed out. Psychologists point to a combination of factors: mental instability with his bipolar disorder, personal grievances, and a belief that he had lost control over his life. Dantzler had a violent history with his ex-girlfriend, who he recently ended things with, and with 4 personal protection requests, with one even being from his own mother back in 1995 that he tried to set their apartment on fire. He had another in 1997 with a female friend of his who he slapped in the face and swore at her over a missing cassette tape. That same year, the mother of his child put in a personal protection order stating that, "I won't be able to leave him with the baby and myself still being alive." In 1999, another woman put in a personal protection order request because she said, "He pushed me back and slammed the car door on my legs." In 2000, Dantzler was sent to prison during a road rage incident where he shot through the window of a car with a man and woman inside. This anger was a result from the abuse he faced as a young kid that he wanted to inflict upon others, and that he felt that he was abandoned by his father and mother who let his stepfather abuse him. On the morning of July 7th, something inside him broke. He armed himself, fueled by a growing storm of resentment and rage, cocaine and liquor. He set out on a killing spree that would terrorize an entire city. It began just before noon. Dantzler arrived at a home on Plainfield Avenue, a place where his ex-girlfriend's family lived. He was armed and ready. He knew exactly what he was going to do. Inside were several people: 27-year-old Amanda Emkins along with her 10-year-old daughter Marissa Emkins and her 23-year-old sister Kimberly Emkins. They didn't stand a chance. Police were called to the scene almost immediately, but Dantzler was already gone. Neighbors reported seeing a black SUV speeding away from the crime scene. The city had no idea what was coming next. While officers were still investigating the first scene, another call came in. More gunshots. More bloodshed. Dantzler had made his way to a different home across town on Brunel Court, another residence tied to his past with his estranged wife, who moved out of their house on Yanes Avenue. There, he continued his rampage with 4 more people. His wife, Jennifer Hiron, her parents Thomas and Rebecca Lynn Hiron, and their young child, Camry Deanne Hiron Dantzler. Dantzler then called his mother and told him that he killed his wife. Gunshots erupted, tearing through the silence of the suburban neighborhood. When the chaos settled, 4 people lay dead. At this point, the authorities were certain Grand Rapids had a spree killer on the loose. The city, once bustling with its usual routine, was now paralyzed with fear, and around 2:30 p.m. Dantzler's mother called the police reporting that her son called her to say he had shot his wife. As police scrambled to track him down, Dantzler was already making his next move. What made this situation even more dangerous was that he wasn't just killing, he was mobile. He wasn't hiding in a house or cornered in one location. He was out there, moving fast, and no one knew where he'd strike next. Around 3 p.m., another victim was shot in an apparently random road rage incident near Godfrey Avenue and Oxford Street SW. Robert Poor was spared serious injury as the bullet was deflected by a titanium plate in his nose. By now, the entire city was on high alert. Businesses locked their doors. Parents pulled their children inside. Police flooded the streets, setting up roadblocks, trying to predict where Dantzler would go next. Dantzler switched cars and went from a black SUV to a Lincoln Town car. The manhunt was one of the largest in Grand Rapids history. Helicopters circled the skies. SWAT teams were deployed. Officers took strategic positions at key intersections, scanning every passing vehicle, every street corner. By then, Dantzler abandoned the Lincoln Town car and told his friend Willie Cunningham that he had been in a fight and asked for him to come pick him up. After picking him up, Willie stated that he was asked to take him to get liquor, and during that time, someone called Willie and told him what Dantzler had done. Willie didn't believe it until Dantzler confirmed. He said they rode around for a couple more hours until he encountered April Swanson, who said Dantzler was initially in the passenger seat. He asked her to pull over to talk, and she said she would, but she kept driving and the white Suburban kept following. She called the police to let them know she's being followed by him, and the police eventually got behind them on Plainfield before it goes into division. That's when Willie Cunningham jumped from the vehicle. With Dantzler taking over and April on the phone, shots were fired on the same block as the police station at about 7 p.m. April Swanson, a friend of Dantzler, said he shot her from his vehicle at Fulton Street and Division Avenue, with the woman suffering a serious but non-life-threatening arm injury. He also fired into a passing pickup truck, but no passengers were injured. Police intervened by ramming Dantzler's vehicle, and they exchanged gunfire. Dantzler had encountered police officers, and he was not backing down. He engaged in a high-speed chase, exchanging gunfire with officers as he tore through the streets of Grand Rapids. Bullets shattered windows. Civilians ducked for cover. This wasn't just a criminal on the run, this was a full-blown urban battlefield. Hours later, Dantzler's rampage reached its final, chilling chapter. The suspect was chased by police, who attempted to disable his vehicle as he drove through downtown Grand Rapids, prior to briefly taking Interstate 196 west to northbound US 131. Dantzler then turned onto eastbound Interstate 96, where he crossed the median and continued eastward onto oncoming traffic in the westbound lanes, and crashed into a freeway ditch around 7:15 p.m. At this point, he exited his vehicle and ran on foot, entering a residence on Rittman Avenue NE in the northeastern part of Grand Rapids, not far from the killings on Brunel Court. He held Joyce Bean, her significant other Steve Helderman, and Meg Holmes hostage. Dantzler had no connection to them. Joyce Bean, who was 53 years old, was released from the house at about 9:30 p.m. after Dantzler was given cigarettes and Gatorade by police. Dantzler continued negotiations with police, at which point he was distraught and contemplating suicide. The tension was unbearable. The hostages were at his mercy, unsure if they would make it out alive. At 11:30 p.m., a single gunshot. He fatally shot himself in the head while hiding in a closet with Helderman, who turned his head just before the shot so as not to see it. Holmes was also still in the room. The police stormed the home, prepared for the worst. And what they found was the bloody conclusion of a day of horror. Rodrick Dantzler lay dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The rampage was over. Police believed that he was hunting his former girlfriend and that the pending separation from his wife was the reason for the shooting spree. Police said that Dantzler was carrying a large amount of ammunition. 7 innocent lives lost. A community left traumatized. The aftermath of the Grand Rapids Massacre sent shockwaves across Michigan. The tragedy reignited conversations about mental health, domestic violence, and the need for intervention before troubled individuals reach a breaking point. Could this massacre have been prevented? Were the warning signs ignored? One thing was clear: Grand Rapids would never be the same again. The events of July 7, 2011, remain one of the darkest moments in Grand Rapids history. A reminder that tragedy can strike anywhere, at any time. This has been Midwest War Stories. If you found this story compelling, subscribe for more true crime deep dives. And remember, behind every act of violence, there's a story that demands to be told.